Going twice.
Susie wants to.
Sold.
How come I keep getting this crappy chair? Somebody's.
If we all get here early, make sure you get that one.
He doesn't
Now
know
it's
that date.
worked.
Don't clue him in yet.
This is fourth year. He'll figure it out. Yeah.
Maybe
No,
in
we're
his
just
fifth
ending
year.
the third. We've started the fourth, yeah.
Same dip.
Okay, excuse me, I would like to call the meeting to order. Wendy, if you would call the roll, please.
Paul Banks.
Here.
Pam Howard.
Here.
Lori Vista Ward.
Here.
Barbara Cruz.
Here.
Dave Levy.
Here.
Mark Setter.
Here.
Jeff Swanty.
Here.
Thank you. Jeff, if you would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. I hope everyone enjoyed their July at least. You will notice we do have a little bit different face, at least one different face up here, I guess. This is our first meeting with our new superintendent, Dr. Mark Schaefer. So welcome, Dr. Schaefer. I think he'll have a few words here in a little bit. First up on the agenda is, can you guys hear me? Okay, I can't hear myself. First up on the agenda is adoption of the agenda, item 2.1, and I will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda for August 1st, 2018. Are there any changes or additions? No. Wendy, if you would call the roll, please.
Paul Banks.
Aye.
Pam Howard.
Aye.
Lori Vista Ward.
Aye.
Barbara Cruz.
Aye.
Dave Levy.
Aye.
Mark Setter.
Aye.
Jeff Swanty.
Aye.
Thank you. The agenda is unanimously adopted. Next item is item 3.1 is approval of the minutes from our last regular meeting, June 20th, 2018. And I will entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
Lori, did we miss 1.4?
Oh, we did. Pam? Let's do the minutes and then we'll go back.
Okay.
Thank you. That's what
So
happens
moved.
when you take a month off, right?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from June 20th. Are there any corrections or changes? No? Hearing none. Wendy, if you would call the roll, please.
Paul Banks.
Aye.
Pam Howard.
Aye.
Lori Vista Ward.
Aye.
Barbara Cruz.
Aye.
Dave Levy.
Aye.
Mark Setter.
Aye.
Jeff Swanty.
Aye.
Thank you, and those minutes are unanimously approved. Now we will go back up to 1.4 and have Pam read the mission statement, please.
The Thompson School District will be a district that empowers, challenges, and inspires students, faculty, staff, parents, school leaders, and community members to learn, achieve, and excel.
Thank you. All right, hopping down to public participation, item 4.1, superintendent report. Dr. Schaefer.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the Board of Education. Good evening. This will be my first formal superintendent report to the board. I'm very excited. Today marks month one in the books. So it started July 1, today's August 1, so we're no longer counting my day in days. It's now officially in months, so that feels really good. So we're off to a great start. This has been just an incredible month. I'm in the process of visiting all 31 schools before the school year starts. So that means 31 individual meetings with each of our awesome principals, really getting to know them, giving them some face time. I really want to just deeply understand their priorities, what they're working on, tour their buildings, and it's given me a lot of perspective. I'm also enjoying meeting with staff. So I've met with district staff, both here at the district office, as well as throughout the district, and just meeting with a lot of key stakeholders and our partners. So, Leadership 101 teaches you to do more listening than talking in your opening days, and so I'm doing that. But getting a lot of stories and hearing a lot about this district, so I'm really, really excited. I want to remind the board as well as our public that I'll be doing a series of listening sessions and meet and greets out in the community. And this is just my opportunity to introduce myself as well as meet people. My first one is scheduled for actually tomorrow night, and that will be at 6:30 p.m. at the Loveland Public Library. And they're scheduled to go from 6:30 to 8. There'll be 4 more of these listening sessions, so each of the different regions of our district I'll be visiting and taking the time for just to really listen to the community, answer any questions that they have, and most importantly, just hear from them. So I'm really looking forward to that. I want to introduce, so I've been doing a bunch of hiring, which is good, and we've hired a lot of talent. Thompson does attract some great people. My most recent hire, and it actually is completed cabinet, I'm pleased to introduce someone who you probably already know. It's Dawn Huckabee. Dawn will be serving in an interim role as our Chief Academic Officer, and so she's awesome, absolutely. So very excited to have her on board. My final update, I wanted to just share an update on transportation. Recently, we sent out a communication to some members of our community. As you may be aware, we've been looking at maybe consolidating some routes and doing some, we did an audit of our transportation routes. So I have just a short prepared statement to give you an update on what we're doing with that. Our transportation department has been working diligently creating and adjusting bus routes for the 2018-19 school year, with elementary school students starting at 8 a.m., followed by high school students starting at 8:30, and then middle school students starting at 8:45. The transportation team is addressing concerns, answering questions, and providing possible solutions to issues before the first day of school. The district's Safe Routes to School coordinator has been assisting parents in giving suggestions for neighborhood improvements. Student safety is at the forefront of each decision as we move forward with the new school year. We are handling each and every piece of feedback that we're getting from the community, and we're customizing our responses to make sure that we're being responsive to individuals. So we're working through that, and again, we've got about 2.5 weeks before the start of this school year. So we're optimistic that we're going to hopefully come up with some win-win solutions. So that concludes my first superintendent report.
All right, thank you. And I don't believe we have any, did I give you that? We do not have any public comment tonight. Okay, so we'll skip right over that. Item 5.1 is the action consent agenda, which is approval of personnel, extra duty, and coaching recommendations. I will entertain a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the action consent agenda, which consists of item 5.1, approval of personnel, extra duty, and coaching recommendations. Are there any questions, board? Hearing none, Wendy, if you would call the roll, please.
Paul Banks,
Aye.
Pam Howard.
Aye.
Lori Visda Ward,
Aye.
Barbara Cruz,
Aye.
Dave Levy,
Aye.
Mark Setter,
Aye.
Jeff Swanty.
Aye.
Thank you. And personnel, or the action consent item passes by unanimous vote. Next up are discussion items. Item 6.1, recruit and retain with new Thompson School District organizational chart recommendations. Dr. Siebers.
Madam President, School Board, Dr. Mark Schaefer, Bill Siebers, Chief Human Resources Officer of this amazing district. Welcome back, Board. It's great seeing all of you. What you have in front of you is continuing discussion about recruit and retain and the organizational chart. So the board policy is administration organization. I'd like to just read that briefly. The superintendent is the chief executive officer of the board and is responsible for the board for all that transpires in the school district. The district has 4 major divisions: student achievement services, business services, operations services, and human resources. The legal authority of the board shall be transmitted through the superintendent along specific paths from person to person as shown in the board-approved organizational chart of the district. The lines on the chart shall represent direction of authority and responsibility. So the first thing I just want to talk about a little bit is the current org chart that we have in place here. So there's some changes that we made. If you look at the org chart, and there's an asterisk there that says comprehensive division department organizational charts on file. Those are the charts that we have in file and aren't presented to you. And basically that tells you, for example, in human resources, this front page will have directors and above principals, directors, the chiefs in various positions there. So when you see materials and procurement manager, James Edwards, so nothing is changing with that. That position will be seen on the department org chart. And then what will replace that, so what you had was the position of accounting and reporting manager who has resigned from our district. So that position, we're not adding position, we're turning that position into a director of finance. So when you look at the new chart, you'll see the finance director below Gordon Jones, who's the Chief Financial Officer. That's the change. So there's not a new position being added as far as adding additional FTE. It's just replacing the position that we have. For the purpose of recruit and retain, attracting employees to our district, upgrading that position to a director of finance will definitely benefit the district moving forward. So this is open for discussion. There are some other positions that were updated as far as congratulations to Don Huckabee, the interim chief academic officer, that's added. And then recently we have hired and you just approved the contract for our secondary education director, Theo Robeson. That's a new change on there. And then currently there's assessment PD director. That's an interim position that we're doing interviews on Thursday. So after a decision is made with that position, then the district org chart will be ready for approval. The purpose of tonight is just a discussion about that director of finance position that has changed on the org chart.
And that org chart will come back to us for adoption August 15th, correct? Questions, board? Dave?
Just one comment. Gordon, if you do have a conversation with Luke, just thank him for our service. I thought he was wonderful.
And did you say that position was posted
Correct.
right now?
And it closes August 12th. So for the viewers at home, if you're interested in the director of finance, that position is on our website right now. And it's an opportunity to work with Gordon Jones.
I might have to apply.
Anything else? Oh, Paul?
I know you only been on the job for a month now, so is this something you think you anticipate looking at further as you get familiar with the district and see if there's actually some more restructuring you want to do, and this is just to get us through this period, or have you found so far that, hey, this makes sense to me and we may keep it this way?
So at least with this position, we made the decision to enhance it to attract the talent. I mean, if we look at our competing districts, a lot of them have it at this level. And in order to attract the caliber of candidates that we're seeking, we wanted to enhance this particular position. In terms of looking at the remainder of the org chart, again, month one in, so a lot of kind of auditing and assessing. We'll absolutely be looking at efficiencies and needs within the district. Right now I would say that people are working at high levels, they're doing great jobs, but I will need some time to really dig in and just have a deep understanding about the organizational chart. But this one was more urgent, created by the opening with Luke's departure, and we really wanted to be able to attract some good candidates.
Okay. Yes? All right, thank you, Dr. Siebers. Next up is item 6.2, bond underwriter recommendations. Gordon Jones.
Madam President, Dr. Schaefer, members of the board, I'm Gordon Jones, Chief Financial Officer for the district. The discussion item that you have in front of you is, for this particular item, is the appointment of an underwriter for the district. As we move down the path of potential bond election or probable bond election in November, a critical piece of that team that we put in place is a bond underwriter. We solicited the help or assistance of our financial advisor, who is Hilltop Securities, to issue an RFP on the behalf of the district. There were 4 respondents or 4 companies or underwriters that the RFP was sent to. The financial advisor reviewed those RFP responses along with me. Then Dr. Schaefer and I have also reviewed those. And all the firms were ultimately qualified to do the work. There were a couple things that set the recommendation apart. Price being one consideration, certainly. Their expertise in the field with the amount of offerings that they have done over the last 3 or 4 years in the state of Colorado. A substantial amount, over $2 billion of bond issuances that they've assisted with over the last 3 or 4 years. They have a nationwide presence. They have their lead underwriter, the person that oversees the underwriting for the entire country, is housed out of the Denver office, so the proximity of having that person available was another consideration as well. But with the team that we have in place, with financial advisor being Hilltop Securities, with bond counsel, Mr. Rick Budden with Kutak Rock, who you'll get a chance to hear from momentarily, with the recommendation for underwriter being Stifel, Nicholas and Company. We have a very strong team in place to assist in preparing for any potential bond issue that there may be.
Questions, board? Okay, and then
No, go first.
Mark and then Dave.
Okay. Could you describe the vetting process a little bit for the 4 respondents in a little more detail, and what Hilltop Securities did on the vetting process for the respondents, and if we did additional?
Sure. They prepared a matrix, if you will, of qualifications of each of the respondents that they then discussed with me. I took another step of thoroughly reviewing every RFP that was submitted, looking at some of the history of the districts that Stifel has participated with in their underwriting efforts. Some of those being Denver Public Schools, Littleton Public Schools, Adams 5-star, Aurora Public Schools. There's a variety of districts that they've assisted with. Really, cost being a consideration, Stifel was the least expensive of the underwriters that submitted a bid, and that was a consideration. Certainly, all the respondents were qualified to do the work. It was based on the price, the experience, having the head of underwriting located in Denver, all those criteria, as well as visiting with my counterparts around the state who have worked with Stifel Nicholas before, to say that, yes, we're getting a quality provider, a good partner for the district, should the board elect to move forward with appointing them as the underwriter.
Thanks.
And Dave.
Gordon, could you explain what an underwriter does?
Underwriter, really, they have a large role in the process. They will help analyze the different debt structure possibilities that there could be, that could be available to us, whether we're going to issue, upon a successful election, issue all of the par amount or the face value of the bonds up front in one tranche, or do it in 2 tranches. There's specific legal requirements on spending once you have bonds issued, so they maintain their tax-exempt status. They assist with that process leading up to any bond issuance. They will also assist in a deep and meaningful manner the analyst ratings presentations that the district has to perform before issuance. That would be with rating agencies like Moody's or Standard & Poor's. They will assist at a great level with those presentations to make sure that that we're putting the best report forward, presenting the district in the appropriate, first the legal a satisfactory legal position that we should be, but then helping accentuate the positives of the district, and then ultimately the underwriter role is when the debt structure has been determined, with their assistance, with the assistance of the financial advisor, with discussions with administration, they are the actual ones that sell those bonds on the open market. So they'll contact they reach out to their contacts, institutional investors, the network that they have nationwide to sell the bonds on the district's behalf. Any bonds that don't get sold, they have agreed that, and it's very common practice, that they will underwrite or buy those bonds. So if we say we're doing a $149 million issuance all at one time in mid-January, let's say, and the market is in a position at that point that there are investors that buy $130 million, then Stifel Nicholas will buy the remaining whatever amount is out there. So the district is guaranteed to have the full proceeds that we are entitled to and that we're authorized.
Great. Plus, this has the authority of the district behind it. So the actual bond, is it, who signs the bond? And when you sell a bond, you give it to somebody, who actually signs it? Is it our superintendent?
I don't know that there's anything signed. I would look to legal counsel maybe to offer that in-depth analysis. The bonds are issued by the district, so it's backed by the district, issued by the district. As far as individual signatures on a bond, I don't, if,
Come on up, Brett.
sorry, the president of the board, I am told.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, you have
Yeah, I'm
to have
not
a
sweating now.
That's it. Take your cut.
It's only 149 million.
So there will be a document that will be prepared. It'll be signed by our board president. It's handed over to somebody when they hand over the money. And that money, does that check come directly to the district? Does it go into an escrow fund? Does it go to the underwriters fund? How does that actual money, who gets that money?
I will defer to Mr. Budden with Kutak Rock, who can speak more eloquently on this matter than me.
Good evening. My name is Rick Budden. I'm a partner at QTech Rock and bond counsel to the district. In answer to your question, there will, assuming the proposed or prospective election passes, we're fortunate enough to have authorization from the voters, there'll be a resolution presented to the board which authorizes the issuance, the actual issuance of the bonds and the terms. And then there will be an offering document prepared which the underwriter uses to access the market on behalf of the district to determine maturity amounts, interest rates, prices. Once that is determined, then we move to closing and the actual bonds are issued and signed by the president, attested by the secretary, and the district seal is attached, and then those bonds are delivered to an electronic holding firm in New York called the Depository Trust Company, who then is responsible for keeping track of who the bondholders actually are and then distributing the principal and interest payments that the district makes to those bondholders on an electronic basis. And then the district then gets the monies from the purchasers of the bonds, and that's paid to the district directly, deposited in a construction account, which will be created under the bond resolution.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. It was very clear.
Any further questions, Paul?
I'm just trying to get my timeline straight. So would we be hiring this firm to do any prep work before the election comes up, or is it pretty much to start if it passes in November?
No, we would certainly utilize their services in prepping for before any election. A key consideration is if the election happens to be unsuccessful, there is no obligation of the district to pay this firm. The underwriter gets paid just as bond counsel does upon a successful election.
Question. In the resolution language for the bond, it shows how much we're going to borrow and how much our total payments are. Our total payments are based on a term and an interest rate. Who determined that interest rate that we are going to the public, that we will present to the public?
Bonds are typically sold in $1,000 increments, so they call, if you think of 149 million, which is the ballot question that we'll get to momentarily, those are sold in $1,000 increments. The coupon rate that they call that is essentially the interest rate that's attached to those bonds is a 5% coupon rate. However, in
The
the,
premium, I understand that. I want
Ex-
to cut you short. But who determined to issue it at 5% at this time?
that's the district's discretion. We
Okay.
have the ability to work with the financial advisor and the underwriter and listen to their expertise on current market conditions, other
Result of
issues.
your best thinking.
Other issuances that are taking place in the state and nationwide, what interest rates are looking like. Are we in an escalating or a de-escalating interest rate environment? We rely on their expertise from these people, especially the underwriters that are in the market every day, buying and selling and trading these types of instruments.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Gordon or for Dick? Rick? Not Dick. Dick's the other attorney. Rick. We good? All right, thanks, Gordon.
This will come back for the board's request for approval at the next meeting.
Next meeting. Thanks, Rick. All right, and item 6.3 then is proposed bond and mill levy override ballot language. I think you folks can just stay right there.
Thank you, Madam President. The next agenda item is the presentation of the draft ballot language for both the MLO or mill levy override and bond. This is one of the functions that bond counsel performs for the district, and at the risk of patronizing, I will say that the district is very fortunate to have Mr. Budden as our bond counsel, one of the preeminent experts in the state from a bond counsel perspective, vast Tabor knowledge, vast experience in issuing bonds. You heard his description of the transaction that takes place. There's an official statement that's issued, which is quite a lengthy document. We're very fortunate to have Mr. Budden's services in this regard. So the draft language that has been prepared by Rick and reviewed by myself and Dr. Schaefer, as well as the board having a chance to take a look previously. This is the language that has been proposed at this point for both the MLO and the bond. And myself, or more likely Mr. Budden, would be glad to answer any questions that the board may have.
Can we, one at a time? You think you want to? Yeah, want to start with the mill levy first? And, yeah, so I don't know which item that was on there, but go ahead and start with the mill levy. Yeah, we'll just start with questions, Rick, unless there's anything you want to preface. Okay. Can you talk into the mic?
The only thing I
Sorry.
would note for Director Levy is on the bond question, the interest repayment amounts and the tax increases are maximums.
Yes.
They're inflated to.
Sure, to protect ourselves.
Yes, that's right.
Of course, of course. You know, I asked part of those questions for myself, and part of the questions of the public would hear how this is done.
Hey, Pam, you had so back to the MLO, you had a question.
So I'm just wondering, for the MLO, when I compare the ballot questions, the bond and the MLO, something that kind of jumps out at me is that, the bond, we're going to have a separate Citizens Oversight Committee, because that's it's a separate fund, kind of like we had a Citizens Oversight Committee for High Plains K-8 school. So what I'm wondering is, for the mill levy, can we task the audit committee, Gordon, to be the mill levy oversight committee, since that's in the general fund? Is that correct?
That is correct. The proceeds would be deposited annually in the general fund. The real work in that is determining initially what costs or what expenditures fit with the items, the bullet points that are listed or enumerated in the ballot language, and then identifying which expenditures those are that will be covered by those proceeds. So certainly I would look to Rick for any correction here, but yes, I think that's something that would be reasonable for the audit committee, the audit advisory committee, to have an oversight role in the formation of, the determination of, and the oversight from an audit perspective of the dollars that are being spent for those particular items.
Dave?
Pam, I like your suggestion very much, and I would extend it that the audit itself should verify our actual public audit, that the money was spent as specified and that the oversight committee
That is,
report back to the board.
That is absolutely part of the audit that we go through right now on an annual basis. The two mill levy overrides that are in existence in the district are sub-funds of the general fund, but they all roll to the general fund. So the auditors are looking on a sample basis of transactions within those sub-funds as well.
Very good, thank you.
Thanks. Because I just think it's very important for the citizens to understand that we do have a community, or a group of community members that are going to be digging into these numbers, both for the bond and for the mill levy. And that just kind of jumped out at me, the difference in the wording. And I don't know if we can add that to the mill levy language or not, to kind of mirror the bond question language of to be monitored by a citizens oversight committee. And that Rick would have to kind of weigh in on that, I think.
And add that to the question if you wish. I would defer to Gordon. He may feel that it's more properly in the auditor's engagement letter.
Right, and this is more of to just be very
Call it out.
upfront with the public.
It's the commitment we as
Right,
the
that we-
board are making to the public.
We are stating very publicly, when they go to the ballot, that this will be monitored by a citizens oversight committee. So I'm just kind of throwing that out to the board as a thought, and to the experts in the room as well.
So just to restate her question maybe and clarify, there's no reason we couldn't call it out in the MLO language if we
You
wanted to.
can could add it similarly
Just
to,
like that little
it
last line up
is in
there.
the bond draft.
That last line.
Madam
Okay.
President, I move that we request staff to add that language in.
We can
Second.
just do a thumbs up on it even. I mean, go ahead.
Second.
Oh, I-
Make a motion. Go ahead.
I made the motion.
Yep, second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to add a phrase regarding,
To be
to the effect
monitored
of to be
by
monitored by a citizens oversight committee, to the language for the mill levy override, to the ballot language for the mill levy override issue. Is there any further discussion? Okay, Wendy, if you would call.
Madam
I'm sorry.
President, if I may.
Yep.
Maybe perhaps not a citizens oversight committee, but the already established audit advisory committee. If the board would allow discretion for administration to, with bond counsel's input, certainly to propose the right group that would oversee that.
We could say the Citizens Audit Oversight Committee. And it's the,
Although saying citizens, in my mind, saying citizens oversight committee is broader, actually, which would include the audit committee, because those are citizens who do oversight, so you're covering more bases?
well, it's just,
I feel like an attorney now.
It's just that word implies
Oversight is kind of a good word
openness.
for these things, right?
it implies it's
Right.
beyond the inner workings
Right,
of
the
the
day-to-day.
district and the board.
Right.
Yeah. I just assume leave it exactly like it is in the bond
There's no
language,
problem. I have no
if all of you are fine with that.
I have no problem
Okay.
with that.
So just to clarify again, we're going to be voting on a motion to add language, basically the exact language that's in the bond to the mill levy override, that little last phrase there that says to be monitored by a citizens oversight committee. So Wendy, if you call.
Paul Banks,
Aye.
Pam Howard.
Aye.
Lori Visda Ward,
Aye.
Barbara Cruz,
Aye.
Dave Levy.
Aye.
Mark Setter,
Aye.
Jeff Swanty.
Aye.
Okay, that sounds like that was unanimous to add that language. Okay, any other questions on the MLO while we're on that one?
Yep. No question, just a comment
Paul.
that just gets me excited to see this language on here. You know, we talk about the values we have as a district and the priorities we've had that's emerged over the last few years. I think it's captured very well in this language. And again, just kind of excites me. We're going to the public to ask for this support. And if it passes through, it's going to allow us to accomplish exactly the things we've been talking about. So I think it's captured well, and I'm excited to move forward with this.
Jeff?
I would like to ask permission to invite Fire Marshal Ned Sparks to speak to student safety, if we could. I know this is a little bit out of order, but he just found out late this afternoon the wording on language, and I think he might have some input here that we should take under consideration as a board.
Is he going to speak specifically to the MLO or to both?
To both.
So do you want us to, my thought was we would wait until we handled both the MLO and the bond.
Whenever you're ready.
So let's, if you don't mind, if we can do the bond one as well, and then you can address both of them. Thanks. I appreciate that. Okay, so there's nothing further on the MLO as it sits? Okay, we will move on to the bond then. Is that okay if I just go ahead and let us ask our questions, and then, are you guys okay with that? If I go ahead and call him up after we ask? Okay. All right, anything on this one, Rick, that you want to head us off with before we ask questions on the bond?
No, I don't have anything specifically to point out. You've seen this question, at least some of you, 2 years ago, only with more abbreviated changed projects and changed dollar amounts, which again, other than the par amount, the repayment cost and the interest cost will be, or the annual tax increase, are maximums, which I've only seen in one instance ever reached.
All right, questions, board? Mark, yes?
Yeah, I had, again, kind of like with Dr. Banks here, I just have a comment. I've done a lot of reading of MLOs and bonds from various districts surrounding us, and I have to say that you have done an excellent job. There's a significant amount of talent that's gone into the composition of this, and it's very obvious and easy to see that. So great work.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, then I would like to call then Fire Marshal Ned Sparks up. You have a few words for us. Just come on up to the podium here.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me have the opportunity to speak with you. I'm Ned Sparks, Fire Marshal for our area and for our community. And all I wanted to do this evening was basically try to keep you all out of harm's way or out of trouble with the state of Colorado when it comes to fire code issues. And I barely looked at the information that was on the bond, and it talks about there's some fire alarm stuff in there. And I apologize to Kristen, I haven't had a chance to sit down and talk with her about this more specifically, but you may want to consider something in there about meeting fire code requirements or something like that, because right now you are out of compliance. And I'm sure at some point the state of Colorado will want to come and have a conversation. So I just really want to be more, I'm acting on behalf of the state, I'm not employed by the state, and I'm just here to help you stay out of, any problems you may have. And really, I'm talking more so about the door issue that you're probably aware of that at some point. Trying to get some kind of electronic devices in there. Could be used for both active assailant and for fire drill or fire alarm issues. So that's all I wanted to do. And if you want my assistance with that or want to speak to me, I'd be more than happy to respond to that.
Hang out for just one minute, and I'll see if anybody has any questions right off the bat.
So I'm just wanting clarification. So in our list of improvements to school stuff, all the fire stuff to get it, it's built in the plan. So you're not implying that it's not in there, it's just that we haven't called it out, and you think it'd be advantageous to call it out to the public.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good idea if you did, only because that tells them exactly what your issues are, and it's not a surprise later if you need to add it in. So it's really more about meeting the requirements that are in place than it is about anything else. So that's all I have.
I'm probably repeating what's been said a lot, but I know that Fire Marshal Sparks and Kristen have talked about this in the past. And I think it's important that the public understands that we don't have the money currently to meet the state's requirement for fire and security codes. And it's extremely important that we do meet it. We may be forced at some point in the future to take money away from other important areas in order to meet state requirements. And I think this will help enforce how important this is with the public.
Thank you.
Good reminder, we have a lot of unfunded mandates from
Right.
the state.
So Gordon, can you and maybe Rick too address, sort of off the top of your heads, I think, what that would entail, whether, you know, sometime, maybe the plus and minus of throwing that kind of language in there, what that would look like?
Just a comment first from my perspective is we do have that has been identified as one of the needs on the bond in the second bullet point, really the second and third bullet points, where this is part of the maintenance backlog that is in place in the district. The code improvement or code compliance is identified in the figures that roll up to get to these numbers. It's just not maybe specifically spelled out in that bullet point, but that is absolutely a line item that is included in the backup that supports these numbers.
So Rick, if we were to add in there, say where it says, and I'm just throwing this out for discussion at this point, but where it says upgrading school building safety, security, and fire alarm systems to be code compliant, for lack of, you know, better words. What if we did something like that?
That would do if that's what you wish.
We could do that if we want to do that,
Yes.
and not be stepping on our own toes, or not put something in there that we couldn't meet.
I don't know. You'll have to ask the facilities person or the fire marshal or someone whether you would be obligating yourself for greater expenditures than you planned.
That's what I'm wondering, like how specific you would need to be safe. Dave?
Well, I think the point is that, as the fire marshal said and as Jeff said, if we don't get the bond, we still have to do this. I mean, the fire marshal has the power to close schools if we're not if we're not compliant with the fire code. So we have to do it. I think the purpose of putting it in is not to get it done. The purpose of putting it is alerting the public that part of the money is going for this, and it's an expense we have, and they should, we're proposing they fund this. So I would just use the language to be as educational as possible, to say that to bring our schools in conformance with the latest changes in the fire code.
I would say state fire code. I would literally use the word.
Done, no
Dr.
problem.
Schaefer, I think, is
Yeah,
wanna
so
weigh in on this, and then down here maybe.
I could ask Todd Piccone, our Chief Operating Officer, to come up and just speak briefly about fire code and our buildings.
Absolutely. Good evening. What I was just explaining is I would suggest that we use language that would be current fire code deficiencies, because that really will capture us and bring us up to date. Some of the risk could be if we leave it vague, code issues. They change so much that as we're procuring the bond, year 2 and 3, it could be different. So then all of a sudden we're reacting to as it's changing. But we definitely have some needs, the current needs of out-of-date buildings that we need to address. So, suggestion would be to make it for current code compliant issues. Yeah.
Down here, Mark?
One concern that I have is I don't want us to pigeonhole this particular bullet item so that it's restricting us to handle only getting into compliance. So I would urge or recommend using the word like including upgrades that that make us current on our compliance, something like that, but not restricting us to just reaching compliance. Does that make sense?
Yes, but yes, it does.
Yes, I believe so. I believe that'll capture the essence. We're trying to get the buildings that are out of compliance today and by previous code to compliant. And that's the list we have, which we're prepared to do. Yeah.
So I think the question, just to restate kind of what I've heard everybody say, is that I think we all understand that we're going to do these things when this passes. But our concern tonight is having language in there that tells our taxpayers that that's part of the reason we're doing that. Correct?
Correct.
Without boxing ourselves into a corner, too. That's the part that makes me just, not that I'm not objecting. I just want to make sure we get the language right so that we're not saying we're going to do something that we can't.
Maybe we're saying the same thing, but I would like the language clearly to obligate us to do this at a minimum. As Mark suggests, we could go beyond that, but safety and security is certainly our top priority with all of our students, our faculty, our staff. I think we have to obligate ourselves and show the public where our priorities are.
Absolutely correct, and the safety goes past just code issues, so that's the other thing we want to recognize is it's not just code issues that it's making us safe, but there's issues in the bond that are going to go above and beyond that that are not code issues. So it's both combined.
That gives you enough to bring something back.
You want to, yeah, do you want to just wordsmith
The wheels
that
are
a little
turning.
bit and come back
Yeah.
next time? We'll let you guys do the wordsmithing and come back next time with that? Is that okay with everybody? All right, anything further on the bond?
On the timeline for this, when do we have to approve the wording?
We will be approving it August 15th at our next meeting. I think we could technically, I'm not even going to say that because that's going to curse us if we do that. We'll be looking at this again August 15th for a vote and then for the final vote.
And the deadline, the absolute drop dead deadline is like early September?
Gordon, what is the deadline? It's September.
The timeline for the November 2018 election would be September 7th. The official language has to be adopted by the board.
So if we needed to bring it back, so we'll bring it forward August 15th for a vote. And for whatever reason, if we need to bring it back in September, we still have that safety.
I may speak not for Mr. Budden, but we don't want to wait until September 7th to have that meeting either. Please give us
Nor do we.
please give us and the county clerks a buffer, if you would, please.
I think as long as we can get, I don't see any problem as long as we get this. This is the only one little wording thing. We dealt with the other one, the MLO
And
one,
if we
so.
get it ahead of time, the August 15th meeting, we
It's
can
that
all
much-
get feedback if we see any.
Yeah.
Yes, and we could, right.
Yep.
We'll do it all.
We know how to do that.
All right, nothing else on the bond then? Nothing else on the mill levy override? Well, we have the attorney here. All right. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Gordon. That, believe it or not, brings us to the end of our formal agenda for tonight. I believe there are no written reports. There is one pending future agenda item, which is, we've put off from a couple meetings ago, which are those boundary changes. Anything else for future agenda or requests for information? Okay, none there. Reminder that tomorrow morning, bright and early at 8 a.m. in this very spot, we will be.
We've
No?
actually relocated
Not
to
in this
room
very
128.
spot. In room 128, which is that room
That
right
room.
there, we will be meeting for our board and superintendent retreat from 8 to 1. Lunch, not 8 to 1?
Yes,
Oh, you're
8 to,
shaking.
sorry,
Okay.
no, I'm having multiple
8
conversations.
to
8
1. Working lunch, there'll be pizza and salad and coffee and donuts. Coffee and donuts and pizza and salad.
I will bring 2 dozen bagels for tomorrow morning,
right.
and everybody wants a special bagel, just see me afterwards.
I will be.
This is the important thing.
I will bring some donuts from Dunkin' Donuts because
Onion, good for you.
my son is now working at Dunkin' Donuts, so I'll make him a visit tomorrow morning and get some
The one
coffee
right on
and stuff.
29th Street?
The one in
Oh,
town,
I will
yeah,
have some
yeah,
tomorrow
yeah,
morning.
yeah.
Tell them to take the day off.
That was a shameless plug right there for. So that's going to happen. That is, oh, I know what I was going to say. That is a public meeting, even though it's a retreat in the back room there, not in our regular room. It is a public meeting, so you're welcome to come and watch. There's no opportunity for public input, but you're more than welcome to come and watch and listen and see us work well, hopefully. Anything else? No? All right. Adjourned.
Thank you. So is there coffee?